Veteran theatre actor Christopher Biggins, who has appeared in versions of the iconic play himself, was among the critics of the Globe, calling it wokeness gone mad. He joins me now. Well, it certainly sounds like it, Christopher.
Well, I mean, as you were telling us all that rubbish that was so beautifully done, I was thinking of Sam Wanamaker, who so brilliantly restored that theatre and painstakingly went through every emotion anyone could go through to make this a very special theatre for Shakespeare.
Yes.
And did a wonderful job. And I think now people are just ruining it now. I don't understand what they want.
I mean, it was a labour of love, wasn't it? I mean, he wanted to reconstruct it as it was. I mean, it was virtually in the same place. I know they couldn't put it in exactly, but virtually on the South Bank.
Yes.
And they this open air...
Open to the stalls or people used to stand.
The groundlings.
Exactly.
All that. And now... But now the theme is we need to decolonise Shakespeare and we need to adapt it to this very, let's say, ephemeral trend of the time. And I think in your case, I mean, you've actually been in this play a number of times, is that right?
I have. I've done it at... I did it in school, and I did it in a television production of it, which I played the wonderful role, very important role, of Potpan.
People might not know who Potpan...
Oh, I'm sure they do. I mean, it's an integral part.
Servant, yes.
That's right, yes. So, I mean, and it was wonderful and joyous and marvellous production for television, and it was great. And the reason I played Potpan is they had every character. Usually Potpan is cut.
Oh, really?
But, yes, but they have every character, because it was television, that possibly could be involved in that production that Shakespeare wrote.
Yes.
And it was great to do it, and we had great fun, and it was a wonderful cast. And I don't understand why... I mean, Shakespeare is done in so many different ways.
Yeah.
They can do it in different... They can do it in the future, they can do it in the past, they can do it any way at all. Shakespeare is marvellous at taking those wonderful, wonderful lines and putting it somewhere else. Why they feel the need to change the lines, I've no idea.
Well, that's very interesting, isn't it? I mean, as you say, it's been adapted in so many different ways. We think Return to Forbidden Planet, based on The Tempest, say, or there's all sorts of ways that you can do Shakespeare. So you're not against reinterpretation, finding new slants, that kind of thing?
No, not at all.
But in this particular production, it's all about mental health, and you would say that's a reasonable, important issue, I suppose.
But I think, to say at the end of this production, or rather at the end of the programme, I don't know where it is, where you said that you can ring...
The Samaritans.
The Samaritans. I think the Samaritans have enough to do, without having to worry about playgoers going to see a play and helping them. I don't know what they can do.
What would I say if I was in the Samaritans? Someone phoned me up saying, I've just seen a play and I'm really upset about it. I don't know what...
Yes.
I mean, you're absolutely right. There are more important things to worry about. And so, I mean, it's very important to establish this. I think that the interpretation... I think it could be quite interesting. I haven't seen it. But I think it's because it's that moral messaging. I suppose what I mean is it feels like I'm being sermonised at. It feels like I'm being preached at. And I don't think... Well, I think if you do that, you miss some of Shakespeare's nuance there.
I think you do, and I think, I think from what I can gather by reading about it and being told about it, that's exactly what they're doing. They are not looking at the Shakespeare's lines, which, how many hundreds of years has it been going, Shakespeare?
About 400.
About 400, exactly. So, and it's perfect. And people go to see it because it's on children's curriculum at school.
Yes.
And also... theatre-goers love to go and see it.
Yes, they do.
And they know what they're going to see. So I think it's an insult to turn around and say to us as theatre-goers, now listen, you may need some help getting through this.
Yes, a bit of hand-holding.
Yes, I know. You don't need that.
No, I mean, that's the other thing about the trigger warning aspect, is they can ruin the play sometimes. I spoke to a man who was involved with the production in Wales that had a very violent scene opening the play, and he said that the company had actually emailed people who bought tickets to say, you might want to turn up 10 minutes late if this might upset you. But then, of course, the shock was part of the theatrical experience, isn't it? So is it just the case that maybe... Are we more sensitive now? Are audiences more sensitive than when you started acting?
No, I don't think so at all. I think the sensitivity is put upon us. It is people are saying... And it smacks of me, of this particular incident, of being a publicity stunt.
I mean, it could be.
To get people to, because Romeo and Juliet is done so many times, everybody's seen it a million times, I would think. And so, perhaps people aren't going to see it. COVID has certainly closed a lot of theatres. Theatres are thankfully opening. I've been to about 12 opening nights in the last 2 weeks.
Right.
And it's very exciting. The West End is alive.
Yes.
And perhaps it isn't alive down on Southwark Bridge, or not Southwark Bridge.
I know exactly, the South Bank.
The South Bank, yes.
Well, we are talking about it now, aren't we? So maybe this is the point.
Well, exactly. I mean, perhaps they want people to go in and find their inner souls by, how dreadful it is. But it's not. It's a great play. Romeo and Juliet is a great play.
And do you find, you've done so many different types of roles in your career. Is there something particular about Shakespeare that you like, or is it very different from the other roles that you've done?
No, I think it is wonderful because the bard really gives you so much scope to play with. I mean, I played in Midsummer Night's Dream. I did Midsummer Night's Dream at Regent's Park Open Air Theatre.
Yes.
And David Conville gave me the part of Puck. Now, Puck is usually played by a very small individual.
Yes.
Tiny. And, of course, I'm far from that. And yet I was a very good Puck, even though I say it myself. In fact, I was the best Puck in the park that year. And so it was an interesting concept, and it worked. And you can do things like that. You can take characters and you can develop them in a different way, because Shakespeare can be seen. You can see a Shakespeare play 7 nights in a row, different productions, and get something from them.
Absolutely.
Because they are so brilliant in their concept, and the words and everything is wonderful.
Well, also, I think it's about, the reason why it's lasted is it speaks to something about humanity that is common, that is cross-cultural, that is trans-historical. And if you just reduce, say, the intense passion of Romeo and Juliet to some kids being a bit depressed, think of all that you're missing there. I don't think the poetry even works.
I don't think it does. And as we said earlier, I'm nothing against them going that way for mental health, because that is a big problem now that we have. But don't go the 4 steps or 5 steps further and tell people what they should be doing and what they shouldn't be doing.
Yes. You're known for so many different types of roles, and you're also known for pantomime kind of roles and comedic kind of roles. What do you prefer? Do you prefer going into the more serious side, just every now and then?
Well, I mean, I started my career off doing wonderful serious roles in television, like playing Nero in I, Claudius, which was wonderful, and then immediately I went straight into Poldark, playing the sex-crazed vicar. So, it was
quite a contrast.
It is a contrast, and it was wonderful in those days, though. It was marvellous, and I was very, very lucky. Now I'm sort of, gone onto the side of entertainment and personality work, which I love as well. I mean, it's what you're offered.
Yes.
And it's very, very exciting to be offered Shakespeare.
Yes.
And, for instance, like today, which wasn't a very nice day, in Regent's Park Open Air Theatre, if it rains, you cannot leave the stage. You have to continue until a disembodied voice says to you, will the actors kindly leave the stage? And I remember when I was doing Puck in A Midsummer Night's Dream, I had Titania, who had lovely, great titties.
Yes, of course.
And she was gorgeous. And the rain started to fall, and it suddenly went ping off her titties, and ping, ping, and I started to laugh, and she started to laugh, and then the audience picked up, and they started laughing. Now, I had a big speech to follow, and I kept thinking to myself, please, please, let us go off, because I won't be able to do it.
Yes.
And luckily, they said, I mean, the Regent's Park Open Air Theatre and the Globe are wonderful theatres, because if you can appear there, you can appear anywhere.
Oh, I was thinking that, because it's a different type of challenge.
It is, because you're not in an auditorium where, you're covered and you have lights and you can hardly see the audience. You can see everything in an open-air theatre. I mean, when we used to do matinees of all the Shakespeares there, you could see the Japanese tourists would come, and they would position themselves as us as the background and take photographs.
Yeah.
And they would eat and they would drink, and they, if the rain started, they put umbrellas up. It was a marvellous feeling, because it was real, it was reality.
Yes.
It was very, very exciting.
Did you always have an urge to act? Is it instinctive to you? Is it vocational to you? Or is it something that you kind of fell into?
No, I suppose I was very lucky. When I was at school, my great auntie Vi, who insisted I have elocution lessons because all my family had a burr from
Which
Wiltshire.
is why you speak so well.
Well, thank you. And so that was in Britain. I mean, she saw something, Mrs. Christian, in me and encouraged me. And then we had a Salisbury rep company, which was a wonderful company. And I went there for 2 weeks and stayed for 2 years. And then, so that's how it all started.
And I imagine back then there were fewer people going into the industry, were there?
Oh, much fewer. I mean, nowadays, I feel sorry for young kids because, there isn't that training ground of a repertory company anymore.
No.
It doesn't exist.
And in rep, presumably, you're doing multiple shows at once. And
Absolutely. And also, going out and getting props, you just cover everything. So you have a real wonderful grounding for theatre.
Yes.
Which doesn't happen anymore now. It's mostly university people come out and they go into theatre or, something like that.
So in a sense, you were lucky in terms of the timing of when you got into it.
Very, very lucky indeed. Thank you, Auntie Vi.
Do you have all down to her? Do you have any particular roles that you absolutely relish and look back on and think, that's the pinnacle of that?
Well, I suppose in television, when I played Nero and I Claudius, I knew that I once was Nero. And I've been brought back to play him. It was...
You completely inhabited him.
Oh, my God, it was just wonderful. And we asked we had a lecturer come in to tell us about the period. And we asked about servants, and he said, well, Nero, for instance, would have about 400 or 500 servants.
Yes.
There'd be someone to wake him up in the morning, someone to get him out of bed, someone to undress him, someone...
That's brilliant.
Wash him. Well, I would love that now. That's why I so love playing him. He was just marvellous, and he was a wonderful character. And so, it is, one has been lucky and done these things. I'm of a great age now, and I look back on it and I think... how fantastic it's been to play these parts. And then, you go into comedy like Porridge, playing lukewarm, with Ronnie Barker, one of the great actors of all time.
Do you prefer playing roles that are closer to yourself or that you have something in common with?
No, I quite like playing a character, and that's why I think I love playing a pantomime dame.
Yes.
Is, you get to wear wonderful... Because the public love a big man to come on in a dress.
They do.
We're going to get to the point after this conversation, I'm sure, where there's going to come a point where they will say, I think we've had enough now. Men can't play dames. When that day comes, I will go out with a machine gun and shoot a lot of people because, Well,
at least you're warning everyone first.
Well, exactly, because the whole point of this is... But I can see it happening. I can see it,
You are absolutely right. There is a movement and it is affecting the arts and it is, what they say, problematising all sorts of things. And I think the idea of a man in a dress could be seen by some.
Absolutely. I don't know why it hasn't happened before, but I'm sure it... I remember, I'm that old, I remember women playing the principal boy, slapping their thighs and saying 12 o'clock and still no sign of Dick. And that was what pantomime was all about.
Do they not still play the
No, they don't. It's all... And funny enough, I do agree with this because Jamie Phillips, my producer, when it started, said that boys in the audience need a hero.
Right.
And I can understand fully that. So they needed a man to play that part.
Oh,
but I was thrilled to have worked with a lot of wonderful women.
Because I think back when I was a young child, I'm sure it was a woman.
Oh, yes, it would be.
Yes.
It would have been. And it was wonderful, and it was just marvellous. And they had lovely legs. And, of course, what was great about it was that dads liked it. So dads were forced to go along to a pantomime with their children and their wife, and they get a nice bit of, totty there.
Because it's an anarchic experience, isn't it? People are quite snobbish about panto, but there is a real artistry to it.
Oh, my goodness, there really is. The evil comes on from the left-hand side and the goody on the right-hand side. No, it's all very technical and brilliant. But I can see it happening, and I probably in my lifetime, certainly in yours, we will see the change, and I don't know how happy I'll be.
Well, you heard it here first from Christopher Biggins, and I rather suspect he might be right. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.